Hey guys, welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Lulu, and today I'm going to be reacting to the second season of Histories and Lore. This is from YouTube on their channel Thrones Insider. So I know some of you don't really want to watch this because you think that this is gonna give me spoilers. Others tend to think this is spoiler free. I did watch the first one, which I'll link it up here and also down in the description box. That one didn't give me any spoilers, so I don't see how this one will. We're gonna give it a go and I will give you my reaction. And I think that just like with the first one, this will give me a lot of explanation of different new characters that were introduced in the second season. For example, there's one that I'm particularly curious about, and that is Brienne of Tarth. I hope that she'll be here and they'll give us a little bit more explanation about her and other people that are new. So without much talk, because I'll be doing plenty of that during the reaction, you guys, well, there will be a little bit of talk and there will also be room for me listening because I actually have to hear what's going on. So you might see some rewinding and some pausing. Just be rest assured that I will be paying attention to every detail I can possibly find. And please remember, I do edit this, so I'm not missing anything. Even if there's something that I missed reaction wise, I am still watching it again as I go through the editing process. I don't have anyone to edit for me, so I am editing everything on my own. And that might be also one of the reasons why it takes me a bit to come up with these videos and provide them to you, but I think that I have a good schedule going on. If you guys are interested in getting early access, yes, early access, I do have a channel membership. It's called Lulu's Movie Club. It's called Lulu's Movie Club. I'm not even sure what I named it. And you will be able to get custom emojis, loyalty badges, and that most important thing, early access to all of my reactions. So if you're interested in that, please go ahead and click on the join button down below next to the subscribe button. And there's also a link in the description that will take you straight to that page. Without further ado, let's start reacting to the histories and lore of season 2 for Game of Thrones. And just grab snacks and drinks, get yourself nice and comfy, and let's begin. Guys, keep in mind that the video quality on the actual histories and lore on YouTube is not 1080p. It's 720p. You could still make out the video perfectly fine, but it's not my preferred video quality. So just, it's not a big deal, but keep that in mind. Robert's Rebellion, Stannis Baratheon.
My brother Robert Baratheon had raised the banners of Storm's End, our ancestral castle, against the mad King Aerys. Jon Arryn of the Vale and Eddard Stark of the North stood with him, and Hoster Tully of the Riverlands would join.
The fish.
But their lands were far from ours, and separated by the combined strength of the West, the Reach, and King's Landing itself. Even Robert's own lords were against him. It was the hardest choice I've ever made. My brother or my king. Blood or honor.
Goodness gracious.
Aerys ruled by right
That's a
of
hard
all the
choice
laws
to
in
make.
Westeros. Everyone knew the price of defiance, but there are deeper, older laws. The younger brother bows before the elder. I followed Robert. Early in the war, Mace Tyrell's indecisive victory at Ashford cut Robert off from Storm's End. Instead of pursuing Robert and risking his record, Mace Tyrell turned east and laid siege to our home. His vast army and navy encircled us and prevented any resupply by land or sea. If a wagon tried to reach us, it was burnt. If a ship tried to land, it was sunk.
Wow.
We were locked in Storm's End to starve.
This is the story that he was telling.
Robert commanded me to hold the castle no matter the cost.
This is the story that he was telling, that him and his wife almost starved to death. I remember it. I don't remember which episode, but I remember him talking about, my brother told me to hold the castle, so I held it. And it was, who was it that saved him? Oh, I'm drawing a blank. Let me just hit play. I'll find out soon enough.
He could ill afford to lose his ancient seat, which had never fallen. While Robert smashed Rhaegar on the Trident, my men ate the dogs.
The dogs, the
because
horses.
the horses had already been devoured.
That's right, I remember.
While the Lannisters sacked King's Landing, we ate the rats.
Oh my gosh.
If the smuggler Davos had not slipped through the Tyrell blockade with his onions,
how could I forget Davos?
we'd have eaten our own dead. But I held the castle until Lord Eddard remembered us and marched to lift the siege. The Tyrells didn't even put up a fight. Wow. And Robert threw a feast to celebrate Lord Eddard's victory. I was sent to the Royal Island stronghold of Dragonstone to deal with Viserys and Daenerys, the last surviving Targaryen children.
Yeah.
Before I arrived, however, they escaped across the narrow sea. Robert was furious. He stripped me of Storm's End and gave it to that prancing fool Renly, my younger brother.
Wow.
I could keep Dragonstone. Now Robert is dead, and a bastard pretender soils my throne while the realm fills with schemers and traitors. But the rightful king is coming for them all, and I will not stop until I have scoured this land clean of abomination. The Baratheons say, ours is the fury. I will show them.
The fury. Oh, you see the stag with the red heart. The red heart because he's now in league with that red woman and their red god. Is it red god?
In King's Landing, if you leave the Red Keep and aren't careful, you may find yourself in Flea Bottom.
It's Sir Davos.
In such a cesspool did House Seaworth have its glorious start.
No.
I got out as soon as I could, finding work on a smuggler's ship. Soon, every port on the narrow sea had a bounty on me, which they would collect if I didn't pay a percentage to the right people or pick the right tides. You know how to tell a good smuggler? When you talk to one, there's a head that talks back. I was very good. Davos of Flea Bottom had run with orphans and beggars, but Davos the smuggler was received by merchants and lords when nobody would catch them.
Nice.
Oddly, the only honest work came from pirates, like the notorious bloodthirsty Salador San.
So that's how he knows
an
him.
Old friend.
30 years and all
All he ever
that.
wanted was someone to buy his cargo quickly before the tide left and sell it without telling where I got it. In time, I saved enough to buy a small plot of land and found a woman who was kind enough to overlook my trade. She gave me a son, Mathos.
Oh, that's the mom.
And we dreamt of the traders' circle around the Jade Sea. Just one trip and I could settle us and our family for life.
Oh.
Then some Storm Lord revolted against the Iron Throne. Wars are not as good for smugglers as you'd think. Every harbour fills with guards and inspectors, and the seas filled with blockades and pirates paid by each side to prey on the other. Though I had no love for the Mad King, I'd grown up around the power of King's Landing. I figured this Robert Baratheon would end the same as the other rebel lords, burnt to ash. But he didn't. The North, the Riverlands and the Vale joined him.
He's just a common man. I like
people
that.
Drank to Robert's health openly. Brave fools, I thought. But I had a family who'd be left in the cold if I lost my head. When Mace Tyrell marched on Robert's home of Storm's End, I spied the end of the rebellion. The castle was garrisoned by Robert's younger brother Stannis and a small guard, and would not hold out for long. When it fell, Robert would be homeless, and his support would bleed away. This I knew from experience. Months later, Stannis was still holding the castle.
Hold on, I forgot to put on the captions.
Nobody cared. But on voyages, I had seen what famine does, and I thought of all those men in Storm's End who would die unmourned and forgotten. No better than Flea Bottom orphans.
Yeah.
I told my wife and myself that I'd get a high price for the onions and salt beef. In truth, I knew I'd be captured by the Tyrell galleys or drowned, but I was too stubborn. Later that night, in the dark, in a tiny boat with a black sail, I cursed myself and the moonlight as I waited for the tide to turn. When it did, the wind beat the sail so hard I ripped it down, fearing the Tyrell ships would hear.
Oh, wow.
Luckily, they'd grown lax. With muffled oars alone, I steered my cargo through the treacherous currents and snarls of rock that give Shipbreaker Bay its name. The waves finally carried me, soaked and near blind from sea water, through the mouth of the cavern beneath the castle.
That's courageous,
Then
let me tell you. He's very
Stannis
brave.
Baratheon arrived.
Oh.
The siege had left him gaunt, but not weak, never weak.
Oh.
He greeted me and accepted my onions with cool courtesy,
onions?
betraying no emotion, even as all wept.
Oh, wow.
He doled out the food to his wife and each of his men before he ate himself,
Oh,
a portion
wow.
no larger than any other. When he finally thanked me, I could see his mind had already returned to the castle's defense. His duty. After Ares fell and Lord Stark lifted the siege,
Wow.
Stannis summoned me. For my salvation at Storm's End, I
He
was to be
didn't
granted
eat until his
knighthood,
wife-
a keep of my own, and my son taken into Stannis.
That's insane. So he did not. This is. Stannis might be influenced right now, but there is no doubt in my mind that he is. That makes him a good man in my book. That man did not eat until his men and his wife ate before. He thanked Sir Davos and he ate a portion just as big as anybody else had taken. He's a person who seems that he puts others before himself, even though from what we saw, he went a little crazy there towards the end when he started yelling, get up men. I'm pretty sure I made jokes that he was screaming at his dead, but there was no one alive left. And he started screaming them, get up and fight. So from what I saw, I only saw his greed or his determination to take over the Iron Throne, and not so much what we see here with the story of him and Sir Davos and Storm's End and all of this. So.
And my son taken into Stannis' personal service. Davos of Flea Bottom had become Sir Davos of House Seaworth, and his son would serve the king's own
Wow,
brother.
and it was
But
an onion.
For my previous crimes as a smuggler, I was to have the fingertips of one hand taken off above the highest joint. Stannis held that I had flouted the laws of the land for years, and a good act does not wash out the bad. In one fell swoop, or 5, Stannis gave my son a future and my family a name that I could never have imagined, nor earned on my own.
That's great.
I still keep the finger bones in a bag around my neck to remind me what I was
Finger bones?
and what I owed to Stannis.
I think I saw that, yeah.
For during my many years as a smuggler, I visited many ports, taverns and back alleys, and saw many things in this world, but never justice.
Oof.
Until Stannis.
Wow, those are strong words. I never saw justice until I saw Stannis. Wow. Margaery Tyrell. Yes, I'm curious on that one.
Some great houses call us upstarts. But the truth is that while the Starks and Lannisters fell to the Targaryens in defeat, House Tyrell rose. For thousands of years, our family served as loyal stewards to the kings of the Reach, until the last of their line unwisely burned to death, resisting the Targaryen invaders. To save the Reach from a similar fate, we yielded the castle of Highgarden to Aegon and his sisters.
Oh.
In gratitude, the Targaryens gave House Tyrell dominion over the Reach. And we became lords of the castle in which, for generations, we had served. Under the
Princes and
Targaryen
princesses,
dynasty, Westeros
queens and
prospered.
kings of
Gone
Highgarden,
were the petty wars of 7
become
kingdoms
lords,
and the endless thirst
thanks
for
to
minor
Aegon and his
glories that
sisters.
drove them. The Westerlands enriched the realm. The North guarded it. And the Reach and Riverlands fed it.
No.
This harmony is what Robert Baratheon shattered with his rebellion against Aerys Targaryen. When the call to arms came, though, we did not want to answer.
Oh.
The Reach is a gentle land, and honestly, the Mad King was not much loved. But we
No, he
owed
wasn't.
peace and status to his family. My father, Mace Tyrell, called his banners and marched north to battle the rogue Stormlord Robert, who had already defeated 3 forces in a single day. And, at Ashford, my father won. Some chastened my father for not pursuing Robert after the battle. We had cut him off from the Stormlands, the seat of his power, and he had fled north, within easy grasp of Lord Tywin Lannister, the Hand of Ares, for 20 years. My father moved instead to lay siege to Robert's ancestral stronghold of Storm's End. The rose would strangle the stag as the lion pounced.
My lord.
So we waited. But the lion slumbered, and Robert slipped past the king's forces to join Ned Stark.
I always say, oh my lord, because they refer to themselves before people. They talk about their houses and the symbol or the logo, not logo, the symbol or the sigil of their houses. The rose was about to strangle the stag, but then the lion, and the lion slumbered. And it makes me kind of laugh a little bit how they refer to themselves in that way instead of saying it in a normal way. But I guess that's not a big deal, but it's just one of those things that it's like, you gotta get used to it.
We could have lifted the siege and deployed our armies north to aid the crown. We could have stormed the walls of the castle and made Robert homeless. But we had ample supplies, control of land and sea, and most of all, patience. Our siege would succeed,
Patience.
eventually, at little cost of life to us. If Robert prolonged the war with minor victories, our capture of Storm's End would hasten his downfall. And if Robert won the war, well, it would not do for him to find us in his halls with the bodies of his brother Stannis and his sworn men. When the lion finally showed his colours and purged King's Landing, we knew our cause was lost. My father chose the peaceful route and bent the knee to Robert, who heartily pardoned us.
Wow.
Strange, considering how we'd beaten him and starved his brother to the brink of death.
That is strange.
We were to keep our lands, castle and title, but we knew that we would never be welcome at court. It didn't matter. The Reach was still the most fertile of the 7 kingdoms, and under our hand. Every flower, even the rose, needs pruning. Then it grows strong.
Interesting. Okay. Not bad. Catelyn Stark. Okay.
Family,
The fish.
duty, honor. Every Tully child learns our words, but I was a woman before I understood them. Years before, my father had taken to foster the son of a wartime friend, a minor lord on the Fingers. The boy had arrived at our castle as Peter Baelish.
Littlefinger.
Due to his home and size, my brother soon named him Littlefinger. When I came of age, Brandon Stark of Winterfell sought and won my hand. To my father, Brandon was heir to the north and a suitable match for a daughter of House Tully. To me, Brandon was wild and terrifying, never far from laughter or trouble. I loved him with all the fire of a first passion.
Oh, wow.
Much I came to realize, as Peter loved me. When Peter heard of my engagement, he challenged Brandon to a duel. Peter
that's
survived
right.
only because I begged Brandon not to kill him. I still thought of Peter as family. Now, I wish I had let him die.
Oh, yes, you do.
Only days before my wedding, when I thought to be happy forever, Prince Rhaegar Targaryen abducted Brandon's sister, Lyanna. Hot-blooded as always, Brandon immediately rode for King's Landing to demand justice, which the Mad King Aerys Targaryen gave him, in his own twisted fashion.
Yeah.
The day the Raven arrived with the
Twisted
news of my
indeed.
Brandon's death, I locked myself in a room and refused to eat for days.
Oh my, Catelyn.
Until my father reminded me of my duty. I was to marry Eddard, Brandon's younger brother. A man whom I had never met, though of whom none spoke ill. or spoke anything at all.
Oh.
Our union would cement an alliance of the North, Vale, Stormlands, and Riverlands in rebellion against the Mad King. I was a Tully. I did my duty. We were married quickly, and were spared only one night before he had to return to the field.
That's crazy.
I spent the war by the windows, waiting for a raven to hear if my son would grow up fatherless or at all. We knew the price of defeat. I scoured the kitchens and washing rooms for any and all gossip. Robert had won and crushed the Mad King. Robert had lost, but Jaime Lannister was now king.
No.
Robert had almost won, but the Mad King had become a dragon and burned King's Landing to ash.
He became a dragon.
At night, I told myself the war would end soon and bring peace. Either a victory or the grave.
Wow.
I was wrong.
Oh.
Robert won, and my husband avenged his brother and my love.
Oh, wow.
But when he came home to me, he could not meet my eyes. I saw the reason by his side.
Jon Snow.
Many men have bastards, I know. And under the strain of war, any man, no matter how honorable, may forsake his vows for a night of warmth that he may never know again. But Ned Stark was not built like other men. His
So
northern
true.
honor would not let him sequester his shame in some distant holdfast. He brought this boy, this Jon Snow, home to raise with his true-born children. My children. Yet even these bitter memories are sweet now. They are all I have left of my Ned. Our family is broken and scattered,
Yeah.
and our son must wage a war
Unfortunately.
for the pieces. We need to go home. The Starks are of the north, and, like the snows of winter when they come south, they melt away.
But you can't go home yet. Not yet, my love. Oh, Robb Stark. Okay. Let's hear him talk about Talisa.
Dark wings, dark words. I was only a boy when the Raven came to call my father, Lord Eddard Stark, to another war. Balon Greyjoy had raised the Iron Islands in revolt and burned the Lannister fleet at anchor. King Robert Baratheon again needed his old friend. My mother Catelyn was not happy to lose her lord husband to Robert again. 6 years before, he had left her to avenge his father and brother against the Mad King. But now he had sons and daughters of his own, and, unspoken, another son who wasn't hers from the last time he went to war.
Jon Snow again.
My brother, Jon Snow. But she knew that in marrying my father, she had married the North. We hold our honor and duty as dear as our old gods. When the time came, my father marched south to restore peace and order to the realm. My father always told me the Iron Islands were a strange and dangerous place.
Strange and dangerous.
Its people, the Ironborn, keep neither the old gods nor the Seven, and despise all honest.
No, they have
Their
a
ancestors
drowned
ravaged
god.
the western shores, raping and slaving and putting it to the torch, and their songs still ring through the halls of the Ironborn, while everywhere else they're whispered to wayward children at bedtime. Perhaps Lord Balon thought Westeros had not healed from the war against the Mad King, and was as fragmented and suspicious as the ancient kingdoms his forebears had terrorized. Robert's navy corrected him at Fair Isle when they smashed the Proud Iron Fleet. Robert and my father corrected him at Pike, his own castle, when they pulled down his towers and breached his walls.
So-
My father never liked to speak of his battles, but from other men I learned what transpired.
Oh.
Thoros of Myr was first through the breach with his flaming sword. Not far behind him was Jorah Mormont of Bear Island, my father's bannerman who earned the knighthood he would later.
Flaming sword, huh? Flaming sword. That reminds me of Lord of the Rings. Flaming sword.
Not far behind him was Jorah Mormont of Bear Island, my father's bannerman who earned the
Jorah.
knighthood he would later shame, and lords from every corner of the Seven Kingdoms. All day, through every passage in the castle, they fought side by side. My father with our ancestral sword Ice, and King Robert with his warhammer against a horde of
warhammer, that's
axe-wielding Ironborn. In the end, Lord Balon bent the knee. King Robert generously allowed Lord Balon to retain his title and castle. The price of peace was custom. The only son of Balon's to survive his foolish rebellion would be taken as a hostage against future treasons. My father even volunteered to foster the boy himself. I suspect
Little Theon.
to make Theon Greyjoy a different man than his father, who would bring honor and duty to the Iron Islands when he returned as heir. So my mother's silent fear came true, and my father returned with another child.
One.
Theon ate with us, played with us, and fought with us. Once the great bond between my father and Robert Baratheon united the realm against a mad king and brought him to justice for his crimes. Now, another monster sits on the Iron Throne, and another debt of blood is owed my family.
Joffrey, another monster.
Theon is my murdered father's ward. I am my murdered father's son. Like my father and Robert, bound in blood, if not by blood, we are brothers.
You were, but he betrayed you. I don't really want to know about Theon Greyjoy.
When Aegon and his dragons burned Harren the Black and all his sons at Harrenhal, the days when men feared the sight of our longships were over. Aegon would not permit marauders and raiders in his 7 kingdoms. With Harren died our empire, and the old way that forged it. But what is dead may never die.
There he goes. What is dead
6
may never
years
die.
after Robert Baratheon won his crown, my father, Balon Greyjoy, sought to restore our ancient rights. He declared the Iron Islands independent, and himself its king, and sent the Iron Fleet in a daring raid on Lannisport where they burned the Lannister ships at anchor, making us unchallenged in the Sunset Sea. This was the seed of our undoing. My eldest brother Roderick led a frontal assault on Seaguard, a town built to protect the mainland from us. After ferocious fighting beneath the city walls, he was slain by Lord Jason Mallister and his men defeated. By this time, Stannis Baratheon had brought Robert's fleet around Westeros and somehow managed to trap the Iron Fleet at Fair Isle, smashing it. Robert's victory was now all but assured, yet we made him bleed for each island. The largest of the Iron Islands, and Ser Barristan Selmy himself subdued Old Wick. Robert and Lord Eddard Stark led the main assault against the island of Pike. They razed the town of Lordsport to the ground before Robert turned his full fury on our family's stronghold. When they breached the walls, the first through was Thoros of Myr with his ridiculous flaming sword, followed by every minor lord of Westeros hungry.
You just say it's ridiculous because you don't have your own flaming sword.
Maron was killed when the siege engines brought down a tower on his head. I was now my father's only living son, and heir to the Iron Islands. When my father saw his cause was lost, he wisely conceded defeat to Robert, who otherwise would have pulled down our castle stone by stone with us in it. As my father said to me then, no man has ever died from bending his knee. He who kneels may rise again, blade in hand. He who will not kneel stays dead, stiff legs and all. As it stands, Robert allowed my father to keep his lands and title as Lord of the Iron Islands, King of Salt and Rock, Son of the Sea Wind, Lord Reaper of Pike, for a price. His last son and heir shipped off to Winterfell as an honoured guest. I would eat at the Stark's table and play with the Stark children. And if my father rebelled again, Lord Eddard Stark would take his sword.
How do you feel about it, though? How do you feel about it, though? Tell us.
It would be his duty.
Oh, I wanted to know. Stannis again, okay. On the Greyjoy Rebellion.
Though Robert had risked all our lives to win it, the Iron Throne bored him. He cared little for justice, and less for rule. If it weren't women or wineskin, he had no use for it. Without the stalwart Jon Arryn as Hand of the King, the challenge to Robert's crown would have come much earlier than it did. The Iron Islands have never lacked for treachery. They respect only strength, and honour is as foreign to them as the Seven. After 6 years, their ruler, Lord Balon Greyjoy, wagered that King Robert had not won the support of the great houses of Westeros, many of whom still named him usurper. Lord Balon declared the Iron Islands independent and sent his Iron Fleet to Lannisport. Lord Tywin Lannister was careless, and the Ironborn caught and burnt his ships at anchor. Lord Balon and his reavers controlled the Sunset Sea. Robert then ordered me to succeed where his father-in-law, Lord Tywin, had failed. Beneath Robert's fury, I sensed relief. War he could understand. He would smash Lord Balon as he had Rhaegar. I raised Robert's fleet and sailed around Westeros.
Is it me or are these Baratheon brothers all extremely self-centered and egotistical?
To the Iron Islands. I set a trap for the Iron Fleet off Fair Isle. As sailors and warriors, the Ironborn are unparalleled. But they're not soldiers. They have no discipline, no strategy, no unity. In a battle, each man fights only for his own glory, and their longships are built for lightning strikes and shore raids. When the captains rushed in, I smashed their longships with our larger war galleys. The strength of the Ironborn is in their ships. With the Iron Fleet broken, I had assured Robert's victory. He could now transport troops and siege weapons to invade the Iron Islands. And contrary to Balon's hopes, Robert had plenty of both. I've never seen such allegiance as Robert could inspire in war. Enemies who tried to kill him one day would be drinking with him the next under their own fallen banners.
Insane.
In rebelling against the Iron Throne, Lord Balon did more than Robert ever could to cement his rule. When Robert came to the Iron Islands, he brought with him the full power of Westeros. Sir Barristan Selmy of the King's Guard led the assault on Old Wick, while I subdued Great Wick, the largest of the Iron Islands. But Robert saved the seat of House Greyjoy, Pike, for himself and Lord Eddard. Robert would later boast of the battle's bloodiness and how he could have torn down the island.
There's something I just wanted to say real quick, and there is, and you could tell this from season 1, Robert seemed to have a very true favoritism to Eddard Stark than his own brother Stannis. And I think, maybe he doesn't care, but I do think that Stannis would have liked to have had a little bit more, or maybe I'm just being too sentimental, that Stannis would have enjoyed a little bit of care or a little bit of that much attention that he gave to Eddard Stark, who was his friend but not his own brother. Stannis would have liked that, I think, and I don't think he ever got it. I think this may be one of those reasons why he doesn't really care for any of his brothers. He does care, but very little. Let's keep going.
And how he could have torn down the island into the waves if Lord Balon hadn't bent the knee. But if I'd have led the assault, Balon's neck would have bent under his sword. Because I do not forget. I do not pardon. His time will come. All their times will come.
So he's less forgiving than Robert is. Stannis is definitely more of a cutthroat kind of king. Margaery. We're going back to Margaery.
House Tyrell trace our descent to Garth Greenhand, the legendary first king of the Reach who made the land bloom. But so too does every noble house around us. It seems dear ancestor Garth planted as many flowers as he plucked. A king should have more consideration for his line, don't you think? For over 1,000 years, the Greenhand sons and grandsons ruled the Reach as House Gardener. The offshoots of his daughters grew into vast and powerful houses in their own right, except for House Tyrell. We chose instead to serve our Gardener cousins faithfully as stewards, to manage their stronghold of Highgarden and the daily affairs of the Reach. Our words are growing strong.
Growing strong.
And under our stewardship, the Reach did just that. As did we. Until a blundering king almost cost us everything.
Aegon. There he goes.
Aegon Targaryen had landed in Westeros. King Mern allied us with the Rock to repel the upstart's army. One can only marvel that King Mern did not reconsider when he saw the living dragons against him.
Wow.
Perhaps he should have sought counsel from his trusted stewards before he set out. Then again, perhaps he did.
Jeez.
At the Field of Fire, Aegon, and let us not forget, his sisters, burnt the combined armies of the Reach and Rock. King Mern paid for his misjudgment with his life and that of his ancient family. In a day, the Reach had lost its king, its ruling house, and most of its army. Thankfully for everyone, my ancestor, Harlan Tyrell, had better sense. Until the Maesters sorted out the intel among Mern's cousins, Harlan the Steward was acting Lord of Highgarden. To ensure peace and life in the Reach, he would yield the castle to Aegon. The other castles and families would then follow, as they had since the Dawn Age. Aegon had a continent to conquer, and the fertile Reach was too valuable to raise.
Cheekbones.
He accepted Harlan's proposal and welcomed our lands into his kingdom. To show his gratitude, Aegon entitled Harlan to Highgarden, the castle his family had served for 1,000 years, and made House Tyrell his wardens of the south, choosing us over older, greater families in the Reach.
Interesting. I'm sure he chose the Tyrell's house over the rest of them. The person who actually surrendered Highgarden to Aegon the Conqueror. So of course he's going to treat them a little bit better than the rest of them. The good thing about Aegon the Conqueror seems to have been that as long as you bent the knee to him, he would leave you with your castle or your keep, with your titles, be the lords, you will rule your kingdom, and basically you just need to answer me when I call upon you. So that's one good thing. At least he wasn't a person or a conqueror, a ruler that was always trying to ruin your life, ruin your house, ruin your family, manipulate and lie and stuff like that, like other rulers would probably do. Or am I giving him too much credit?
1,000 years, and made House Tyrell his wardens of the south, choosing us over older, greater families in the Reach. Our house thus owed everything to the Targaryens. So is it any wonder we stayed true to King Aerys, even during his madness, and even after Robert Baratheon rebelled? Some may question my father for laying siege to the Baratheons' home, instead of marching to aid Prince Rhaegar before Robert could kill him and scatter the royal army. But let us not forget that we had already dealt Robert his only defeat of the war at Ashford. If Lord Tywin Lannister had not vanquished the Mad King so suddenly, our siege would have destroyed Robert's home and his brothers and won the war for Aerys. But when the Targaryens fell, House Tyrell again chose peace and prosperity over war and devastation, and bent the knee to King Robert Baratheon, first of his name. We returned to Highgarden to manage the affairs of the Reach, as we had for thousands of years, and will for 1,000 more.
Right.
Other great houses take lions and wolves for their sigils, and draw their power from the gold in their mountains or the cold of their winters.
And yours?
But mountains run dry. Winter yields to spring. And the rose blooms once more.
Rose blooms once more. Yeah, but the rose dies too, sweetheart. Hello. I don't know, I don't know much about flowers, but I think roses die quicker than any other flower that I have ever known. At least that's my experience. So I think I'll prefer to take for a sigil the Lannister lion or the Stark direwolf before a rose. That's going to last maybe a week if you're lucky. Theon and Yara Greyjoy.
Where the north has its honor and the south its chivalry, the Iron Islands has its strength.
We call ourselves the Ironborn, and we are warriors feared throughout the Seven Kingdoms.
Or so we used to be. Unlike their mainland cousins, the first men of the Iron Islands never bowed to the old gods.
Theirs was the drowned god, who made the Ironborn to reave and sack and write their names in salt, steel, and song, that his enemy, the Storm God, could not wash away. We raised our kings from our own ranks, and used beaten foes as thralls to work our mines and farm our land.
or assault wives, if a woman was pretty enough.
You see what I mean?
Such was the old way, and while we followed it, we held sway wherever
I'm sorry,
the waves...
but Theon Greyjoy, the Greyjoy house, the whole Iron Islands is probably one of the worst houses that I am actually hearing history of. I mean, assault wives, sack this, rape that, what is ours is just ours, and all these little sayings. I don't like this house. I don't like this house.
Such was the old way, and while we followed it, we held sway wherever the waves were heard. When Aegon came demanding fealty, King Harren the Black ruled as far east as the Trident.
Other kings like the Starks could kneel, but Harren was Ironborn, and the Ironborn must be beaten.
Beaten? Oh my gosh.
In Harrenhal, he had the mightiest castle in Westeros, and the army to defend it.
You gotta beat him.
But Aegon did not intend a siege. He mounted his dragon and roasted Harren and all his sons in their tower, and the old way with them. Because of Harren's defiance, Aegon pushed the Ironborn back to our islands and gave the riverlands.
That's what happened to Harrenhal.
But he did allow the Ironborn to choose who would lead them.
House Greyjoy had always been one of the greatest houses of the Iron Islands. We trace our descent from the Age of Heroes and the legendary Grey King, who took a mermaid to wife and made war upon the Storm God for 1,000
mermaid.
years.
His wife was a mermaid?
God, the Grey King fought and slew Naga, the great sea dragon, and took her fire for his own.
Sea dragon?
This history made our ancestor
that.
Vicon Greyjoy the natural choice to lead the Ironborn after Aegon's conquest. For 300 years, House Greyjoy ruled the Ironborn. We styled ourselves Lord of the Iron Islands, King of Salton Rock, Son of the Sea Wind, Lord Reaper of Pike.
See what I mean? Lord Reaper?
In truth, we were thralls. Our people still chanted, "What is dead may never die."
Yeah.
But the old way had died.
Until the Targaryens followed their dragons into the grave, and our Lord Father, Balon Greyjoy, rose against the new king, Robert Baratheon. He seized our ancient crown and sent our Iron Fleet against the Lannisters at Lannisport, burning all their ships before any could weigh anchor.
Though Robert and Eddard Stark would later defeat him, they understood us no better than Aegon. The Greyjoy sigil is the Kraken.
The Kraken.
What it grasped once, it will never
surrender. The lion, the wolf,
what is dead
and the stag are all being held by the Kraken. Everybody wants to be bigger than the top three. Sandor Clegane.
Honor, glory, lies to make idiot boys want knighthood, and idiot girls spread their legs for it. Let me tell you what makes a knight.
Oh no.
Either enough men or the right man. House Clegane should know. We're very good at both. Most families claim some great ancestor so far back that nobody can prove them liars. Not us. My grandfather kept the kennel for Lord Titus Lannister of Casterly Rock, the father of Lord Tywin. Lord Titus was a weak man who didn't know it. One day while hunting, he stumbled on a lioness.
That's Tywin's father, right?
Instead of embracing the man who wore her on his banners, she tried to tear out his throat. Lucky my grandfather came up with the dogs and drove the big cat away. As a reward, the Cleganes got lands and a keep and a son to squire for the Lannisters.
Whoa.
We took the 3 hounds who died for them as our new sigil.
Interesting.
When Tywin Lannister became Lord of Casterly Rock, he wanted more from his former kennel master than fealty. He bet that training hounds to kill isn't far from training boys to kill. In just 2 generations, my brother Gregor and I proved him right. I gutted my first man at 12.
Gosh, dude.
Years after, servants started disappearing in our keep. And even a sister I don't remember. But nobody could prove anything against
sister you don't remember?
Gregor. Or dared if they caught him at it. For my father wanted a knight in our family, and thought he'd found one in Gregor, who at 13 towered over enough men that they called him the Mountain. Sure, Gregor looks quite the champion from a distance, but a mountain can't cleave a man in half with one blow. and won't break a wench's face if she talks. Through Lord Tywin's influence, Prince Rhaegar Targaryen kindly anointed my brother personally. A great honor for our family, everyone said. 1 year later, Sir Gregor chivalrously sacked the prince's city, brained the prince's baby, and raped and murdered the prince's wife, winning our family yet more honor from the new king and queen.
Honor. I like the way he says it, quote unquote.
Soon after, my father died. They say in a hunting accident.
That seems to happen a lot, huh?
Gregor became lord of the
Another
Clegane
hunting
lands,
accident.
gold and anything under his roof. I left our home to take service at Castle Rock. Lord Tywin is not like his father. Neither is King Joffrey. Or the likes of me would never be on the King's Guard with all those true knights. Between them, a man who serves the Lannisters will never lack
Look at
for
little
killing.
Joffrey right there.
I'll guard
I want
this
to
king,
punch even his
such as he
little
is.
cartoon.
Gregor will kill the other ones, such as he does. When we're done, we'll see how many people still believe in songs and fairy tales.
He's a little cynical, isn't he? I like how Sandor is not a person that needs to be open to interpretation. He literally tells you what's on the top of his mind, and he tells you the truth. As brutal and blunt as it may sound, he tells you the truth about pretty much everything, including his own brother. So that's interesting. Ygritte, the free folk. Ygritte, right?
A long time ago, they say, some old southern king enslaved our giants by magic and forced them to build your famous
wall.
Then he kicked all of my kind to the other side and raised an army to keep us there. And we're the uncivilized ones.
We're the uncivilized ones.
Might be Sir King was wise. Even a giant can be made to kneel. But only if he wants a better crack at your head.
A better crack at your head.
The free folk don't follow a man because his father tells us. If the king's son was brave and strong, aye, we'd follow him as we did his father. If he wasn't... But it seems to me, as much as the wall keeps us out, it keeps you southerners in. You follow laws you didn't make. Kneel to kings you didn't choose, and pray to gods you never hear from. Traders talk about your seven. Beyond the wall, the stars shine bright and clear. Any gods there aren't listening to the likes of men. Our gods are of the forest, in the trees that shelter us and the rivers that feed us. They gave the land for all of us to share. We fish, farm, and hunt.
They're just like the Starks. They believe in the old gods.
If a man wants a woman, he has to prove he'll give her strong and cunning sons. It's easy. When she tries to slit his throat, he don't let her. With the free folk, you get what you can take, and you keep what you can hold. No more. I wonder, even if my kind didn't hop over your wall, would he still set your night's watch to guard it? You southerners are rich. You always have more steel, gold, and daughters.
Southerners are rich.
I think you're afraid.
Oh my.
If you've always knelt, you don't know what freedom is. And if you've not been beyond the wall, you don't know what fear is.
What in the world is that? Looks like a dead panther or something. What in the world was that? Okay, now Ygritte on the Night's Watch.
Swords in the darkness.
Hi.
The Black Brothers of the Night's Watch are that, at least. As too many of the free folk know. You southerners are strange. A man murders, and you train him to kill better. A man thieves or rapes, and you send him where it's dark and private. Well, at least you make him promise to be good. Well, then you make him regret even that. From the time he's woken to the time he's allowed to sleep, he walks the frozen wall, carries frozen stones or boils frozen food. When he lies down at night, he can't have nobody to warm his frozen bed. Well, not unless the crows like to nest together. Do you think he remembers the story they told him then? About when the White Walkers woke in the land of always winter, and how the wall and the Night's Watch were raised to stop them the next time. And never mind trapping us on the other side.
These subtitles are so off. Like, they're barely right.
And the Night's Watch were raised to stop them the next time. And never mind trapping us on the other side.
Murray.
We free folk have our stories too.
Murray. Who's Murray?
About how one of your king crows found something cold in the woods with bright blue eyes.
A White Walker.
How he brought her home through your wall and declared himself Night's King. 13 years he and his queen ruled over his brothers, making sacrifices as black as their cloaks. Lucky for you Southerners, the free folk rallied to a king beyond the wall, as we will when need be, and marched on the ancient castle he'd taken for his own, the Night Fort. With the help of the Starks, we killed the demon and cleansed your precious watch. And then they thanked us and kicked us back across the wall, as you always have.
Wow.
Gendel, Raymond Redbeard, the Horned Lord, each chosen as a king beyond the wall, each promising victory. And all falling to the Night's Watch and the Starks. But this time is different. Our new king knows your tricks. You called him a Brother Crow once, but you never forgot his wings.
Yeah.
We know how you think.
Though good for little else, Dragonstone was the perfect staging point for Aegon's invasion of Westeros. The Blackwater Bay granted easy access to the continent. The lands there were disputed by 3 kingdoms, the Reach, the Iron Islands and the Stormlands, but their capitals were far enough away that none could mount a force before Aegon got a foothold, even if their kings had been able to stop bickering over whose problem he was. Then it was too late. Aegon had chosen his first camp well, with the bay to the east, the river to the south, and open fields to the north and west. His army would be impossible to take by surprise. A perfect site for an invasion, and one day, his capital city, King's Landing. The Doom had taught the Targaryens the prudence of refuge. After the conquest, Dragonstone became the seat of the crowned prince and heir to the Iron Throne. It would serve them well, and me ill, 300 years later, after my brother Robert Baratheon rebelled against the Iron Throne and the Lannisters slaughtered the Mad King Aerys and his royal family. Robert dispatched me to deal with the last surviving Targaryen children.
Right.
But before I arrived, a loyal knight smuggled them across the narrow sea to safety.
Right. They went to Essos.
Hatred for the Targaryens blinded Robert. Unjustly, I was blamed and stripped of our family's castle of Storm's End and given Dragonstone in its stead. Over the years, whenever I demanded my rights restored, Robert would remind me of the island's royal pedigree and pretend he was doing me honor, as if I were one of his tavern girls to be so easily deceived and dismissed.
Lord, dude.
But Robert
Stannis,
is
you have
dead,
such a mind.
and I, Stannis Baratheon, am the rightful king of Westeros. Let the usurpers and traitors sit on the Iron
dragon
Throne.
behind them?
From Dragonstone, I will be the dagger at their throat.
Catelyn Stark, Harrenhal. She's gonna talk about Harrenhal.
On the shores
They
of
should
the
make Arya
God's
talk
Eye,
about it.
due north of the Isle of Faces, rises a monument to arrogance and cruelty. Harrenhal. For a people who prided themselves on their ships, the Iron Men of old seized any chance to leave them, and carved out a vast kingdom from the peaceful river lords. The empire reached its zenith under King Harrenhal, called the Black by those he terrorized, and by his own men, though they meant it proudly. King Harren enslaved the Riverlands to raise the mightiest fortress Westeros had ever seen. A castle that could garrison 1 million men, with walls so vast that winters would come and go, and besieging armies grow old and grey before the castle fell.
Do you notice one thing that's constant here that just keeps repeating itself and repeating itself and repeating itself is that it's all a competition. One house with the other, whether it's lions, roses, dire wolves, I was going to say lions again, stags. It's the same thing with the castles. Who has the strongest castle? Who has the mightiest castle? Who has the weirdest castle? It's all, and I'm going to say it just like this because this is how I mean it. It's like a pissing contest. Who has the bigger castle? Not the biggest, but the strongest. It's almost like everybody has to brag about their territory. It's like they're all a bunch of contrarians. They're just going against each other. Like Harrenhal has this castle, and Dragonstone. Okay, well, Dragonstone had a weird castle, but then there's also the castle in the Eyrie that is impenetrable because it's up there on the top of the mountain. The only way out is through the moon door, and it's like everybody is just, it's a competition constantly, one against the other, against the other, against the other. As you can see, Westeros is not a land of peace within their kingdoms. It's more like they're all trying to outdo themselves. Even those who don't have a castle, even the wildlings in the north are trying to somehow go to war. It's all war here. Let's keep going.
5 and besieged men, with walls so vast that winters would come and go, and besieging armies grow old and grey before the castle fell. 5 towers he ordered, reaching into the heavens like grasping fingers. A monstrosity which he forced our people to build for their own subjugation. But the very day the slaves laid the last stone, Aegon Targaryen and his sisters arrived in the south. When they arrived with their small army, Harren laughed and shut the gates. Harrenhal would have its first test, and an easy one at that.
Yeah,
it
of course
failed.
It did.
Harrenhal could have withstood an assault from all the armies in Westeros
but not
combined.
A dragon.
But Harren learned that the tallest and thickest walls meant little to dragons. For dragons fly. With Harren and his sons dead, Harrenhal quickly surrendered to Aegon. House Tully then raised the River Lords in rebellion against the Iron Islands, and with Aegon we flushed the Iron Men to the sea. We should have torn down the castle stone by stone then, but Harrenhal seemed such a magnificent prize that Aegon gave it to one of his commanders, whose line then withered to extinction. As would every family to hold it
The sigil keeps changing, the banner.
When many speak of Harrenhal, their voices drop to whispers about Mad Lady Lothson, who was said to send a giant bat to collect children for her crockpots, and to bathe in blood and serve feasts of human flesh. About the ghosts of Black Harren and his sons who still walk the castle at night, all aflame. Of the servants who went to bed in full health and were found in the morning, burnt. Mere stories to frighten wayward children and excite young girls, you may say. You would not be entirely wrong. Harrenhal is a prize. A nigh impregnable castle with enough land and enough income to make a man, at a stroke, one of the greatest lords in Westeros. But you would not be entirely right either. Say by a king's grace, Harrenhal became yours. Now you must garrison it. You must repair it and maintain it. Even stretched to the ends of your means, you cannot fill and manage the whole castle. So you retreat your household to 4 of the 5 towers, then 3, then 2, then only the bottom thirds of those. You close the hall of 100 hearths and take your meals in your rooms. Even then, you can't shake the feeling of desolation. That Harrenhal and its vastness is devouring you.
Wow.
In later years, as you bury a grandson or a great-grandson, the last of your line, you will know it has.
You know, I've been saying ever since I first saw it looks haunted. It looks like a haunted place. And it's funny that she should say that because it looks like it is a haunted place. So, okay, keep going. Jorah Mormont on the Free Cities.
At its height, the Valyrian freehold ruled over half the known world. Not bad for former shepherds, but the doom fell on them and sank their capital into the sea. Now Volantis is the ember of old Valyria, ensuring its flame does not go out from this world, as any Volantine will tell you. Pentoshi say the same about Pentos, Lycians about Lys, and so on. But after enough time in the 9 free cities, it's hard to see them as anything but ashes of glory. Volantis is the oldest, the first colony of Valyria. After the Doom, the Volantines tried to rebuild the empire under their rule. They failed. Not least because the last Valyrian with dragons, Aegon Targaryen, entered the war against them. Now they are content to dominate only their lower classes. Or so they say. Braavos is the strangest, a city erected not by the freehold, but against it. A labyrinth of illusion and deceit to hide the refugees from Valyria's slave lords. After the Doom, the city emerged from the shadows to become one of the greatest banking centers in the world. A man can get anything in Braavos, for a price. Especially death. Your own if you offend one of the swaggering swordsmen that pollute the city. Or, if you're very rich, or very desperate, anyone else's. Lys is the easiest of the free cities, full of pleasure houses catering to every taste, no matter how peculiar. Many men lose themselves in Lys and are never found, at least alive. When a man runs out of coin, the Lycians may grant him their other speciality on the house: poison. Pentos is the most ruthless. The Magisters make a great show of choosing the Prince of Pentos from the great families and granting him the powers of trade, justice, and war, as long as he checks with them first. On the new year, to bring good fortune to Pentos, this prince must deflower the Maid of the Field and the Maid of the Seas. I confess I don't know how each is chosen, or what becomes of them after serving their purpose. But if a crop should fail or a war be lost, the Magisters will slit the prince's throat and choose another. The other free cities are known for what they make. Mia has its lenses and finery, Norvos its axes, Quohor its smiths who can reforge Valyrian steel, Tyrosh its colors. I'm sure Lorath had something to the world, but I can't think of it. Frankly, the 9 of them are more alike than they would care to admit. They hire the same soldiers to fight the same wars for the same rulers, the rich, be they called Magisters, Archons, or what have you. When a Dothraki Khalasar approaches, they gift the same tribute to avoid the same sacking. For thousands of years, the disgraced of Westeros have drained east to pool in the free cities, where a man of honor counts for less than nothing, unless it raises his price. Better men than I have learned that what a man sells for gold, he can never buy back. He must earn it. By fire and blood.
Goodness gracious. Zaros Soen Daxos from Qarth. Qarth. I said it wrong.
Qarth has always and only belonged to the Qartheen.
Caffeine.
We were never part of Valeria's empire, nor have we ever fallen to a Dothraki
I'm sorry,
horde.
I have to laugh, but literally, the Qarth. I'm pretty sure he meant Qartheen. The actual captions said the caffeine.
We were never part of Valeria's empire, nor have we ever fallen to a Dothraki horde. Our walls and the red waste outside them guard us from such annoyance. Many call the approach to our city the Garden of Bones. It needs little tending to grow. Our city, however, would be quite a prize for any empire. Qarth straddles two worlds, a greedy and curious west, and a rich and mysterious east. The marvels of Yiti and Ashai pass through our markets and share berths with the
richest... No, it said E.T. I'm sorry, I can't. I think I'm better off without the captions. E.T.
Greedy and curious west, and a rich and mysterious east. The marvels of Yiti and Ashai pass through our markets and share berths with the riches of the free cities and Westeros. Our ports have fulfilled many a trader's dreams, almost as many as they have broken. We call Qarth the greatest city that ever was or will be. An easy claim to make if one knows only the docks and customs houses of other cities. An easy lie to swallow if a people see only the gold and jewels of their rulers, which we, the 13 who govern the city, are careful to ensure. The proud Qartheen shook off the yoke of unjust kings long ago, so they are told at festivals by the pureborn, the king's direct descendants who have controlled the 13 ever since. Only now, instead of scepters, they use ships. A merchant only remains on the 13 until the others are no longer afraid to deny him, or too afraid to deny his replacement. Except for the Warlocks, they alone hold a hereditary seat, a relic from when they had powers, or at least from when the world was younger and more easily duped. Over the years, we have developed an understanding with them. They shall always be welcome on our councils and at affairs of state, provided they never come.
Don't come.
Rare is the civic problem that can be solved by cryptic nonsense and shade of the evening. Thankfully, they need little encouragement to confine themselves to their house of the undying. Yet perhaps we Qartheen are too confined ourselves. We feel safe behind our walls and our laws, which no visitor can hope to follow, and by which any citizen who vouches for a guest always pays with his life. But like a ship in the summer seas, a city grows becalmed without fresh wind. The greatest city that ever was or will be? An epitaph. I would prefer the greatest city that is.
Yeah, well, you're stuck in a vault dying with what's her name now, so... Yara Greyjoy, the dragon god. Oh, for goodness sake. I don't want to know anymore about the Greyjoys.
The seven are gods of weakness and defeat. Pretty chains that the first men kindly put on after the Andals crushed them. Except in the Iron Islands. Since the Dawn Age, the Ironborn have followed the drowned god, who plucked fire from the sea and made us to reave and sack and carve our names in blood and song. When the Andals landed on the Iron Islands, they found a god who was father, warrior, and stranger, who took mother, maiden, and crone when he would, and held the smith in thrall. His priests are the drowned men, who are clothed and armed by the sea itself. They consecrate us to the drowned god through our most sacred rite, the drowning, and ask the god to raise us from the sea as he was, baptism. Harder and stronger. The Ironborn do not fear the bloodiest battles or the roughest waves, for the drowned god taught us long ago that what is dead may never die. When an Ironborn falls, we say the drowned god needed a strong oarsman and took him below to feast in the god's watery halls, attended by mermaids. But even in death, an Ironborn is a warrior. We fight against the storm god, who holds a castle in the clouds, and sends the winds to lure the Ironborn off course or wreck our ships. It's said my legendary ancestor, the Grey King, waged war upon the storm god for 1,000 years. With the drowned god's help, he slew the great sea dragon Naga and used her bones for his haul. After his death, the storm god tried to wash away any memory of this terrible foe, but his songs fill our halls to this day. It was the storm god who first blew the Andals to the Iron Islands, to subdue us and turn us from our faith. True, they conquered and killed our king, but in time they forsook their septs for the shore, and their fat septons for the drowned men. The Andals came to us as conquerors. In the end, they drowned. The Ironborn are of the sea, as our god made us, and given to it as our god taught us. We do not fear the storm god's winds or his waves, but you should, for they bring us to you.
The Alchemist Guild, Howlin, the Pyromancer, the little old man.
Dragons conquered the Seven Kingdoms, but to rule them, the Targaryens needed a less temperamental tool.
Wildfire.
When the great King Maegor saw the power of the Alchemist Guild, he blessed us with his patronage. In those days, we commonly transmuted metals and other wonders, but the king was most interested in our mastery of the substance, which those not of our order dub wildfire. A slight misnomer. To the uninitiated, the substance indeed seems uncontrollable. Water will not extinguish it, nor plate of steel repel it. Our order alone knows its secrets. In bare stone cells beneath the guild hall, our acolytes prepare the substance with utmost care and ancient magic.
So they're like chemists.
Then remove the jars to a secure storage. Overseeing its purity are the wisdoms, such as myself, who are adept in the alchemical mysteries. Should an acolyte prove unworthy and allow the substance to ignite, the ceilings are spelled to collapse and fill the room with sand. For once lit, only smothering or starvation will quench the fire.
Jeez.
Many years did the Alchemist Guild serve the Targaryens faithfully, until we were beset on all sides by the envious, the Order of Maesters, who dismissed all learning but their own, and the charlatans who hucked green paint and worse in our names. After the unfortunate Prince Aerion Targaryen, drunk with wine, boasted that a draught of the substance would transmute him into a dragon, we lost our royal favor. Then came the wise King Aerys, second of his name. I was merely an acolyte when he restored our guild to its former glory. As had his great forefathers, he appreciated our secret arts, even naming Wisdom Rossart as Hand of the King. Together, they punished his enemies as befits a true Targaryen. During the war of the usurper, I heard whispers that King Aerys had engaged our greatest wisdoms for an ultimate weapon against his foe. But sadly, King's Landing must have fallen before it could be used, and many of our wisdoms disappeared in the sack of the city, victims of ignorance and envy, as ever, I'd wager. Yet our order perseveres. Like the substance, which grows ever more potent as it ages, we perfect our ancient arts in darkness, forgotten by the world. We are masters of the fire, but we live only to serve. All we need is the right spark.
No more with you and your warlocks. I don't care about your warlocks. Are we gonna have more warlocks
plagued with mystics who claim many dread powers but prove only one, separating the foolish from their purses. Not so with the renowned warlocks of Qarth. They demand a much dearer coin in return
it's the
for
same
their
guy
parlor
again and
tricks.
again.
Respect. Once, the warlocks truly were mighty, or so they would have us believe. I do not doubt they have many secrets. They are an old order, and one does not obtain a seat on the 13, the governing council of Qarth, without making 12 of our most powerful citizens afraid to forbid it. Thankfully for Qarth, the warlocks exert little influence in our politics. They rarely leave the confines of the House of the Undying, a pompous name, but I admit, a strange and dark tower. It is said that none who enter ever leave. Of course, since there are no visible doors, I have to believe none ever enter either. We can only imagine what the Warlocks do inside. I wager we do not have to imagine much.
It's basically a house of illusionment.
They read dusty scrolls detailing their lost glory. They sip shade of the evening, a foul concoction brewed from the nearby trees, until their lips turn blue, the better to frighten children and the ignorant. Stewing in their fantasies like an old soldier who drinks alone so no one may challenge their prowess. Whatever the Warlocks may wish, their magic, like all magic, is dead in the world, if it ever existed. Though, one does hear strange whispers of late. Glass candles that have been cold for 100 years, now burning. Ghost grass, found far from the lands of the shadow. A Khalasar led by a woman with three
dragons.
heads.
Not 3 heads.
Traders' nonsense, most likely. But should the Warlock's vaunted magic ever return, that would be a dangerous day for Qarth. I shall need to keep my eyes on them.
You
Indeed.
and your eyes and your empty vault. Alright. Okay, so that was pretty much it for Season 2 of Histories and Lore. Game of Thrones Season 2 Histories and Lore. So there was a lot that I learned. There's just a lot to recall all that from my poor memory. I thought it was interesting that they explained, especially in Jorah's voice and Jorah Mormont's voice, about the free cities and everything that they do, like the people from Bravos, the people from Lee's, and a couple of other ones that I'm not remembering the name right now, but there's a lot of history in Essos, and it would be interesting. I hope that they give us a little bit more insight when it comes to the TV show about these other free cities of Essos, the eastern part of the world. I also hope that we get to see a little bit of Highgarden, this place with all the gardeners and the roses. I'm very intrigued by that city. And there's just so much. Like, Stannis spoke a lot. The Greyjoys spoke a lot. They explained about their drowned god. I think, though, that I can't say they made a mistake, but they missed one. And it should have been the Red Priestess, that woman with the red, that Stannis could have been the one to explain who she is and what they believe in and their Lord of Light. I feel like that's missing from here, because we did hear a lot about the Lord of Light this and the Lord of Light that, and look into the fires, and in the very last episode he actually sees something in the fire. So I think that was relevant, and I think they should have put that in there because I think that was important. Interesting to see Catelyn Stark talk about how the story came about when she was with Ned Stark's brother Brandon, and then him dying, her, of course, forming the allegiance with the North for her family, for the Tullys, and her marrying Ned Stark. Also, Ned Stark leaving to war and coming back from war with Jon Snow, pretty much about the same age as Robb Stark. And it's funny how she even says that even those memories are good memories now. She said it somehow like that memories are all she has to hold on to, and that her family is broken, that they should be in the North. This is how installed this woman is into the North, that even though she's from a completely different world, that she's from a completely different house and used to other customs, she's very much installed into the world of the Starks, and Winterfell is her home. So a lot of things that I learned, and once again, I don't necessarily think that these are spoilers. If you come to think about it, they're not really spoiling anything for me. I am literally just learning more history and lore. It's pretty self-explanatory title, about how things were in the past and how it relates to the last season, season 2. So it's a good thing to watch this at the end of every season instead of at the beginning. So I'm very happy with having watched this and gotten a little bit more detail about the Game of Thrones universe. Alright guys, so that's it for this reaction. I hope you enjoyed it, even though the subtitles are pretty distracting because they're not accurate at all. I think that YouTube really needs to work on their subtitles because there was some things there that were like totally off. But I hope you still did enjoy it. And if you like this video, I'm gonna ask you guys to please go ahead and give it a like, subscribe if you want to, and ring the notifications bell. That way you guys get notified on the next reaction. Once again, thank you for spending some time here with me, and I will see you guys all next time. Bye.